Welcome back, everyone. Today's explainer is diving into something genuinely fascinating. We're unpacking a recent seminar that took a deep, really critical look at the Alia Madrasa education stream over in Bangladesh. Imagine a room full of educators, professors, and government officials, all getting together to dissect the historical shifts, the modern branding crisis, and, this is the best part, the surprising resurgence of this whole system. It's absolutely a compelling story about legacy, overcoming systemic hurdles, and a community fighting hard to reclaim its narrative. Okay, let's dive into this and map out our journey for today. We'll start with the historical legacy, then define the branding crisis, and look at the root causes behind the decline. After that, we'll tackle the administrative challenges, the role of teachers, and finally wrap up with some signs of resurgence. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the historical legacy, focusing on centuries of integrated learning. Let's move to and see how this builds, because to truly understand the current crisis, the seminar speakers anchored their arguments deep in the system's history. We're not talking about some modern invention here. This is a legacy spanning literally centuries. The keynote traced the roots all the way back to 1270 AD. That's when the Sonargaon Madrasa was established. And what's honestly amazing about this ancient curriculum is that it was entirely integrated. Students weren't just sitting there learning theology, they were simultaneously mastering physics, mathematics, chemistry, and metaphysics. Fast forward to 1780, and the Calcutta Alia Madrasa was officially founded, which really formalized this stream. And fun fact, it was actually graduates from this Alia stream who later went on to establish the super famous Deoband Madrasa in 1866. So history shows us this incredibly vibrant, holistic approach to education. Because of that holistic approach, this system historically served as an absolute powerhouse for producing national and intellectual elites. We are talking about top-tier, brilliant minds, people like the renowned scientist Dr. Qudrat-e-Huda, or former chief justices like Syed Mahbub Murshid. Even former prime ministers came out of this system, like Atta Rahman Khan and Chaudhry Muhammad Ali. These were individuals who seamlessly blended deep religious scholarship with worldly leadership and top-notch academic excellence. Which brings us to Section 2, defining the branding crisis and looking at a shift in public perception. So, with such a prestigious powerhouse past, what exactly went wrong? Well, the presenters defined this modern branding crisis as a pretty heartbreaking reality. Basically, it's a situation where students feel hesitant to proudly identify as madrasa learners. Can you imagine that? When these students hit higher education or the job market, many of them actively hide their educational identity. The panelists expressed some really deep concern that despite this esteemed history we just talked about, systemic stereotyping and modern hurdles have severely damaged the confidence of its graduates. And a massive factor the speakers pointed out here was media portrayal. The panel highlighted a collective, ongoing grievance. They noted that over the decades, dramas, movies, and the media in general have frequently stereotyped religious figures. They often portray characters with traditional madrasa backgrounds in a negative or regressive light. And they argued that this long-term media framing has heavily contributed to shifting public perception, slowly but surely eroding the brand equity and that deep societal respect madrasa graduates historically enjoyed. Moving into Section 3, root causes of the decline, specifically policy, neglect, and division. But it's not just about the media. The educators trace this perception shift directly back to colonial influence and decades of policy neglect. And this brilliantly illustrates the core issue right here. Historically, there was this integrated education model, that beautiful blend of the secular and the spiritual. But under British colonial rule, a divided system was introduced by Lord Macaulay. The speakers argue that this colonial policy deliberately split education into two totally distinct, isolated tracks. You had secular public education on one side and purely religious instruction on the other. This fundamental division, they explained, completely fractured the holistic learning model and isolated madrasa students from broader scientific and administrative fields for generations. Building on that historical fracture, the seminar detailed several modern policy hurdles that are really compounding the issue. For instance, they pointed out that curriculum changes back in 2012 significantly shortened specialized religious subjects in the middle grades. On top of that, Ebtidai, which are primary-level madrasas, were historically denied nationalization, unlike general primary schools. So what happens? Many parents simply send their kids to general schools for early education instead. And when those students later join the madrasa system at age 12 or 14, they severely struggle with Arabic phonetics and foundational theology, which naturally pulls down the overall academic quality of the stream. Next up is Section 4, Administrative Challenges and Institutional Roadblocks. Now, the bureaucratic roadblocks compounding this crisis are, frankly, pretty severe. First, they noted a huge hiring mismatch through the National Teachers Registry. General candidates were actually being appointed as Arabic teachers, even though they totally lacked Arabic fluency. Second, the missing PSC job codes. This one is massive. The Islamic Arabic University was founded in 2013, yet speakers noted that higher degrees like Fazil and Kamil are still frequently left out of official government job circulars. That leads to immediate job discrimination for those graduates. Add to this the lack of training infrastructure, literally only one dedicated training institute for madrasa teachers in the whole country, and the fact that madrasas are overseen by general secondary school officers instead of a specialized cadre. It is basically a perfect storm of institutional neglect. But let's shift gears to Section 5, the role of teachers in leading the revitalization. Because this explainer isn't just about dwelling on the problems, the seminar heavily focused on solutions driven by educators themselves. The panelists outlined some highly actionable steps to bridge this gap. So, the crucial point is how they integrate these fixes. Step 1. Embrace modern technology. They explicitly called for teachers to bring tools like ChatGPT and Google Scholar right into their pedagogy. It's ancient theology meeting modern AI, which is so cool. Step 2. Push for strict dual language fluency in both Arabic and English so students can communicate on a global scale. Step 3. Provide proactive, modern career guidelines so these students know their degrees hold real value in today's market. And step 4, teachers absolutely must uphold the highest moral and ethical standards, acting as the visionary leaders their students desperately need. Finally, we arrive at Section 6, Signs of Resurgence and the Path Forward. This proactive approach is already showing some incredible, surprising results. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this specific metric right here, 23. Recently, 23 students from the Arabic department alone were elected in the highly competitive Dhaka University student elections. And the absolute best part? They openly and proudly owned their madrasa roots. General University students are actively voting for madrasa-educated peers to be their leaders. That signals a massive shift in social acceptance and acts as a direct counter to the whole branding crisis. Summarizing these wins, the speakers painted a really vivid picture of positive momentum. Think about it. Madrasa graduates aren't just winning student elections, they're successfully passing rigorous national exams and stepping into top-tier government roles in the BCS education and administration cadres. Plus, there are finally pending government initiatives to nationalize over 1,000 Ibtidai primary madrasas, which would directly fix that foundational educational gap we talked about earlier. So, despite the heavy structural crisis, the foundation itself is experiencing a massive, genuinely tangible resurgence. Which leaves us with this final, thought-provoking question. We've seen how a system rooted all the way back in the 13th century was fractured by colonial policy, stigmatized by modern media, and bogged down by administrative roadblocks. Yet it is fighting back through the incredible dedication of its teachers and the sheer resilience of its students. So, I leave you with this. How will the fusion of historical integrated education and modern technology shape the next generation of leadership? If they can truly blend the holistic wisdom of the past with the AI-driven pedagogy of the future, what kind of leaders are we going to see emerge? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.